Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a completely non-spoiler book review for The Girl the Sea Gave Back. So the setup for this book is that it is a dual perspective story that follows two main characters. That's what dual perspective means. And one of our main characters is a girl who does not know much about her childhood. She washed up one day on shore and was found by somebody who's like, "You're super tatted up for a kid and you were on this random boat. But the tattoos likely mean that you can kind of sort of tell the future, so join our clan and help us out." It is very Viking-esque, so you have these different clans, and this particular clan that she is found by, they don't really like her at all. They kind of think she's a bad omen, but they also decide that because she has this gift of foresight, they can make use of her. Her life, as you can imagine, isn't the greatest. She doesn't exactly have a lot of friends. In fact, multiple people from the village have tried to kill her before, so life's not looking so good for her, but she kind of has nowhere else to go, and she's under the impression that her clan tried to sacrifice her given the state in which they found her. But like I said before, she can't remember anything basically from 6 years old and earlier when she did wash up on shore. And so she is one main perspective of the story, and the other main perspective is Helvard, who is from another clan, and he is next in line to become their chieftain. And due to some of Tova's abilities to tell a little bit of the future, their paths kind of end up intertwining, but not when it comes to being allies, more as enemies. For me, the biggest strength in this story was the writing itself. It was so beautiful, and I have read books before that are atmospheric. I've definitely read books before that are set in a place near the sea, things like that. And I didn't really think there were too many new ways to describe things or too many ways for me to feel like I was inside that world. But I do think that she did that really well, and she managed to do it in a way that I just haven't quite felt a story the way I felt like I was inside this one. It was really, really stunning. In kind of a strange way, it was almost a con of the book as well because of the other elements of the story. So it's written in first person for both point of views, and first person is common. It's not like that's a bad thing or anything like that, but I find that when you have first person point of view, you almost have to try harder to establish the characters' voices, because if everybody is constantly saying, "I did this, I felt this," you have that constantly, and you don't necessarily have a narrator saying the character's name and then kind of telling you their facial expressions or telling you how they responded to something. You don't really get those indicators as often. And because of this, it made the two point of views feel sort of similar, and they had different backstories. The two characters are coming from two different clans, and they're very different, but the way in which their narratives felt or how they came across, they didn't feel that different. And I think it's because both of them were so rooted in the atmosphere of everything. I say all this as somebody though who always really wants to get to know characters as much as possible. So I definitely think you should probably consider that. Also, if you're somebody who you don't mind when you kind of get more absorbed in the story and it's not necessarily about how is the character feeling right now, what are they thinking? If that's not as important to you, then it probably won't be a big deal at all. I just found that it's kind of difficult when you have a multiple point of view story where both are in first person. It's already difficult to do that in established voice. And when the story, the writing style is so atmospheric, it makes them kind of mesh together even more. There were a couple of things the author chose to do that for me, they kind of sort of changed the feeling of certain scenes. So there were a few times throughout the book where something really intense would be happening, and because it's a dual perspective point of view story, we would get one character's point of view up to a certain point, and it would be really intense, high stakes, things are happening, I'm really invested. And then when we go to the next character, the only other character, it would start back from here, and then it would catch up, and then it would keep going. And for me, I really wanted it to just start where the other one left off, because then I'm kind of rereading the same thing, and it loses its sense of intensity, in my opinion. And it was still done, though, because I think we were trying to tap in how what was happening affected this other person. If you've read Six of Crows, and Crooked Kingdom, it happens in those books too. You kind of rewind a little bit and then you get to where the other person is. It happens a lot in multiple point of view stories, but I find, from my personal taste, as much as possible, I prefer to get to a certain point and then just start right from there. There were also some flashback sequences in this book, which I do think helped establish the characters' voices a little bit better. It kind of gave us a little bit more insight into our characters, but I find that sometimes flashbacks can be tricky because if they don't feel like they're really serving a purpose to the story in present day, and if they just feel like they're establishing the characters a little more, then I kind of want those things to be incorporated into the present day narrative. And so I found the flashbacks, I think they didn't quite need to be there. I did like them. I definitely liked getting insight into the characters. I just think I would have preferred that insight given to us in present day, maybe through interactions between characters. I think I would have liked the story in general to be quite a bit longer, or to be a first book in a series, because from everything I've seen, it's a standalone, and I definitely feel like we could have gotten so much more. I wanted to know so much more about these characters. I found them really interesting. I found their stories really interesting, and the writing style was so beautiful that I could have just soaked in it for so much longer than I ended up doing, because it's only a little over 300 pages. I do want to mention something about the fact that this is a kind of Viking-esque feeling story, and that is that a lot of times in Viking stories, you find that it's kind of male-dominated, and the females, even if they're feisty and they have a voice in their societies, they're still kind of oppressed a little bit. And I have nothing against stories in which the world is set up a certain way. So I'm not saying, oh yay, finally something different. But in this story, it wasn't really like that. Men and women, I didn't really see one being above the other, and the way that the characters interacted with people of either the same gender or opposite gender of them, it didn't seem like, oh, well, this is a woman, so I can't speak about these important war things in front of her, or something like that. That's a really stupid example. But what I'm getting at is, it was kind of cool to see a world inspired by Vikings, but we already have fantastical elements mixed in. It's clearly not supposed to be an exact representation of Viking times or something. So I liked that the author, she did something a little bit different. She made the story about the characters, about the story, and a lot about the warring clans, the constant turmoil that they're facing. That was kind of at the center of things. I just feel like they didn't have the time to be like, oh, but these women. Overall, I find that if you are looking for a Viking-inspired story and you're looking for one that is a standalone, it's quick, it's not consumed by romance, and it's not consumed by a sexist world, and it really is beautifully written and very atmospheric, that's what this is. It's Viking fantasy, I would say. But I think that the author has the potential to write an epic. I think that she has such a beautiful writing style, and it just feels like we only barely are getting the different cultures of the different clans, and that there's so much more to learn about these clans. But I didn't see anywhere that this is just a book one in a series, and I so badly want it to be. And it's okay if it's not. It still has a satisfying enough ending, but I would want to see if this author is going to write a full-on series someday, because I just think that she's got so much. I think she really thinks through all of the different small things that change one person from the next and change one culture from the next. I think she knows all of that, but in a standalone, you just don't have the time for it, especially in a short standalone. But that's the stuff I want. I want more of that. I want more of the characters. I just want more of the world. And hopefully, if she writes a series, or if she continues to write this one and it ends up being a series, that would be great. That's kind of what I want. For those of you that have read this book, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you want to chat any spoilers at all, just make sure you write spoilers so that nobody gets spoiled who hasn't read it. And if you are one of those people who hasn't read it, let me know if it sounds like something that you'd be interested in, if it sounds like something you want to pick up. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.